Hey guys, Paul here. So one of the most interesting ways which anxiety affects us is in terms of our relationships. Obviously, our relationships are the most stressful, the most triggering experience that human beings have. Yep. Relating to other people are where our triggers and our anxieties, come up the most in every way. So it's kind of a conflicting place, isn't it? Where inherently human connection, so intimacy with other people gives you 80% of fulfillment from your life. Whatever you do, whoever you are, 80% of fulfillment is simply by the connection with the loving people that we know in our life and we experience around us. So with anxiety, it can cause all kinds of effects in all kinds of different and interesting ways, which we're going to go through now. So it does tend to affect men and women in different ways in general, but the patterns are the same. But obviously, as men and women are different, the way in which these patterns come out tends to be quite different. So the general simple patterns, all those other ones, obviously, yeah, but the general simple patterns that people tend to follow. Men tend to follow the pattern of either avoiding relationships altogether, associating pain with them, and kind of being non-committal, and just kind of becoming like a rock in the center of the stream and just avoiding those things at all costs. If that makes sense? Yeah. Or they can be in a relationship and not really be able to do two things. One thing, which is create connection and intimacy with their partner, yep, and secondly, lead the relationship. So maybe they create a relationship that's more them following their partner or being submissive or being kind of weak in the relationship, but they're not really in a place where they can feel confident, strong, powerful, and lead their partner in a way that's truly attractive to them and in a way that they truly want. So how does this affect men? Well, it affects men the worst, probably 100 times worse than it affects women for several reasons which we'll go into. So every man that I've ever met with anxiety has always either got divorced or had a relationship breakdown because of anxiety. This is true for me. This is true for every man that I've ever met. Yeah. The reason why is because primarily, unconsciously, a woman's emotional needs, the most important need that you can meet as a man. Why is it that women always say confidence is attractive, or a funny guy is attractive, or why is status so attractive to women? It's attractive because it fulfills women's unconscious instincts of having a man who's a provider and can protect them. And within that as well, there's certain physiological traits, isn't there? So when scientists have done studies on babies, yeah, and put different pictures of different faces in front of babies, an angry face, unhappy face, this and that face, what they found is all stress states, yep, immediately activate that baby's amygdala. So activate the stress part of their brain and stress out the baby just by looking at a stressed and tense face. So when we're anxious, everyone that we interact with, we're continuously triggering anxiety and stress and tension within them. When we feel relaxed and great in ourselves, we're continuously relaxing the people around us. So when we're an anxious man, what happens is, so primarily when we hug our partner, when we're emotionally connected to our partner, as a strong man, we relax our partner's nervous system, make her feel calm, confident, trustworthy in us, at ease, relaxed, yep, and it has a soothing effect on women. So women, when they find a confident man, it's incredibly soothing and incredibly relaxing and makes them feel wonderful in themselves. So on the flip side, when we're anxious, it does the opposite. So instead of having a relaxing effect on our partner, we're continuously making our partner feeling more worried, more anxious, more stressed, more uncomfortable. So with women, being more sensitive than men in general, you can see in yourself how that's going to have a devastating effect on the relationship, and you're likely to turn a wonderful woman into a woman who's angry, moany, complainy, whiny, puts you down all the while, criticizes you, and it's going to bring out all the worst, most negative effects in a person. Whereas on this side, when she feels safe, when she feels secure, and she feels happy, and you are the very foundation for that, all it's going to bring out is a much more positive and harmonious relationship in a way that's right for you. Yeah, awesome. So inherently, this either makes men, when they're in their early stage of life, very unattractive to women, where they find it really difficult to even get in any relationship. And even if they do get in a relationship, it makes them really weak and insecure and kind of withdrawn. Or some men, it just makes them completely kind of detached from relationships, yep, where they don't really have any intimacy or connection. So it becomes like a kind of business relationship, like business partners or colleagues at work, rather than really intimate, close, and loving, connected relationship. So in terms of men, absolutely 100%, every man has to recover from anxiety, recover from stress, because men, although it seems sexist in today's society, we are the foundation. We are ultimately the default we are ultimately the glass ceiling on every person in our family. Yeah, so if we are not leading, then our whole family is falling downwards, which is unfair. I know it's unfair, guys. I know it's unfair, but it's just a reality. It's just the reality of how it is. It's just the reality of the dynamic of male to female relationships. And if you do the opposite and let your partner be the leader, she'll never really hate you for it, because women are not fulfilled when they play that role, which is, I know it's a sexist generalization to say nowadays. Right, I'll say it accurate. I'll say, so from the 1,000+ people I've spoke to, it's been almost conclusively, to the letter, 99% of people have not been happy being forced to play the wrong role. So men are not happy playing a submissive role, and women are not happy forced to being the leader because of having a submissive and anxious man. Yep. Now, it's not that they're not happy consciously doing it, but emotionally it simply doesn't meet their deeper needs, which makes them happy and makes them fulfilled. For example, I'm sure lots of men would be happy being submissive and letting their partner run the show, but how does it make you feel as a man? You feel weak, you feel reserved, you feel introverted, you feel shut down. You don't feel strong, empowered, confident, and great in yourself. Yeah, so it has a negative effect in that type of way. And from the businessmen I spoke to over the years, one of the most frustrating patterns that happens with relationships is when they relate to their employees instead of other people in their life. Yeah, so they kind of create the employee relationship as the normal relationship, right? Why? Because it's a relationship where they've got all the power. It's a relationship where people are nice to them, people laugh at their jokes. It's incredibly fake because obviously most employees dislike their boss, yeah, but they're still incredibly nice to them because they want to get promoted. And when they've done that, it guarantees, it creates a default. I'll get there in a point. Just wait. I'll get there in a minute. Yeah, where the amount of intimacy that they perceive as normal, yep, has been kind of homogenized by the work relationships. So imagine a work relationship isn't particularly loving or close or intimate or connected, is it? Yeah, and that's how they create their marriage, in the same way as if it was an employee. So they never really create a harmonious, close, intimate, loving relationship, and create it kind of at a distance in a kind of business relationship type, kind of cold type way, which is horrific for them and horrific for their partner. And obviously it's going to end in calamity at some point. Cool. So we've kind of gone through how it affects men. Yeah, it stops men from being the leader in the relationship, stops men from feeling powerful, confident, strong, stops men from really being the person who their wife or partner, desperately needs, and it shuts us down in all kinds of different ways. It makes us avoid, it makes us withdraw, makes us feel fearful, makes us not lead sexually in terms of our partner's violent. Yeah, whenever I speak to men, one of the key symptoms is their partner doesn't want to have sex with them. Yeah, normal, always universal when they're stuck in an anxious or a stress state. Which makes sense, doesn't it? Because why would someone want to be close and loving, intimate, connected to us when we feel awful, and just by them being around us, they feel worse? Obviously, it's fair enough, isn't it? It's fair enough in that type of way. Cool. So with women, it affects women slightly differently. So women in relationships inherently, when they're anxious, search out a man to take care of them and protect them. Yeah. So they're really clever in terms of, it actually meets a man's needs to be protecting and take care of a woman. So women who are anxious can typically find a man who's strong, who's empowered, who works hard, and then he'll do all the things for her and actually meets his needs where it doesn't meet a woman's needs in the same role. Yeah, so it meets his needs, and actually it solidifies the relationship. And lots of people I've had where women have been really anxious have had actually really great relationships that have functioned really well. But also there's the kind of opposite effect it can have, whereas some women who are anxious or stressed, especially business women, yeah, can then be kind of overly aggressive, or so these people are the avoiders. Yeah, the avoiders generally can have good relationships with men because they avoid everything, and then they want a man to take care of them and be strong, and he feels strong, good in himself, taking care of them and doing all the things she doesn't want to do. So it creates a good balance and harmony. Whereas the opposite is the repressors. Yeah, so the repressors is women who are highly stressed, highly tense, highly uncomfortable in themselves, and they mainly deal with it by repressing. So the repressors, they still do everything. They don't avoid anything, but they repress everything. Because if you repress one thing, you repress everything. Yeah, so they really kind of disconnect themselves from their emotional needs. So then they don't feel good in themselves, feeling close and intimate and loving in a relationship, which is what a relationship is. So their relationships are always kind of separated and disconnected, where there isn't any emotional connection, joy, fulfillment in the relationship. It becomes like a business agreement in that type of way. And this is incredibly unfulfilling for women, incredibly unfulfilling for men. And they tend to then pick someone who's more submissive. So someone who's going to listen to them, do what they're told, and they're quite controlling in that type of way. Yeah, so it's pretty awful all round in every way. Yeah, but the beauty about it is people can change at any point. So when you conquer your anxiety, when you conquer these stresses, when you put yourself first in this type of way, you put yourself in a place where 80% is dealing with those things, and the next 20% is understanding these tendencies, conquering these problems to really get yourself back on track in a tremendous way. Every man that does this, yep, is going to make a tremendously positive influence on their relationship in terms of their wife being attracted to them, wanting to have sex with them, wanting to be around them, in terms of emotions and closeness and intimacy, and in terms of all the negative feedback they get from their wife. That when they put themselves first in this way, then all the moaning, complaining, whining that can happen in a relationship between two people, 90% at least at a minimum is going to reduce or is going to stop. Yeah, because all that fuel, all the defensiveness that they feel because they're full of anxiety simply goes away. So even if someone's critical to them, they don't add fuel to the fire, and it doesn't lead to continuous resentment and arguments in that type of way. Cool, hope that's kind of made sense, or maybe it's confused you more and kind of crystallized these things in your mind about how anxiety, chronic stress is affecting your relationship day to day. In men, it sabotages and destroys relationships, and then women, depending on the personality type you are, it can actually create a positive relationship, or it can create a really unhealthy relationship where you're quite controlling and quite unhappy. Awesome. Take care, guys.